All right, Jen Lukey, thank you. And the fate of those propositions, just one of the tantalizing questions that your votes will answer tonight. Joining us now, our political analyst, the state political columnist for the New York Post, Fred Dicker. And Fred, tomorrow we'll be Monday morning quarterbacking all of this. So tonight, one more time, we get to talk a little bit about, as I say, those unanswered questions. And there are so many of them, really. Some of them we've talked about in recent days, and they become even more tantalizing as we sort of wind down these last few hours. What are we hearing about voter turnout? What kind of impact will that have? And, if the governor is, as the polls suggest, will win, how big a win is he likely to have?
Well, those are all the right questions. There's no question about it. I was just talking to some of the Astorino people, and they're still hopeful, even though the polls suggest they shouldn't be. I also checked around the state, and part of the reason for their hope is that in New York City and in Buffalo, two areas where the governor is expected to do very well, the turnout is described as light, not very good, whereas upstate, especially in rural areas, it's described as quite heavy. It's heavy on Staten Island as well down in New York City, where there are a lot of Republicans, and there's a very hotly fought congressional race going on there. So that's a big question. If the governor wins, the question, too, is how big will his win be? It's possible with a third-party candidate in the race, Howie Hawkins, that the governor could win with under 50% of the vote. If he did that, it would be a national embarrassment. And just finally, while the U.S. Senate's in play and may go Republican, the New York State Senate's in play as well. So a lot of people are very kind of nervously eyeing what's going to happen there. Nobody really knows. The governor today, Governor Cuomo today, said it may be weeks before the final verdict is in on who takes control or retakes or keeps control of the Senate. And I think he's right on that. There are going to be a lot of hotly fought races that may not be decided for many weeks to come. And
there's also a whole question about the left and whether they go green or not, and that also could affect Cuomo's numbers.
Absolutely, whether they go green or whether they stay home. And, what happens to the Working Families Party, so-called, which is a left-wing party controlled by unions in the state and very reluctantly back Governor Cuomo. If they don't get 50,000 votes on a ballot, they go out of existence as a legally recognized party, which they are right now. People are watching that, along with the question of whether this new party, if you can call it that the governor created, the Women's Equality Party, whether it gets 50,000 votes to become a legal party, which the governor obviously would then control.
And is there any strong feeling one way or the other on these propositions, since we were just talking about them?
There's a strong feeling that very few people are going to vote for them, that there's a good chance Proposition number 3, which the $2 billion bond act, which a lot of groups have come out against, will go down. The first one that has to do with redistricting, that's supposed to be curing the problem of gerrymandering, but a lot of critics say it might even make it worse. I think that's probably got the best shot of the two controversial ones. And number 2, on electronic printing of bills, I think that's going to pass. It's not controversial, and it would save the state quite a bit of money.
Yeah, it's hard to vote against saving trees, I guess. All right, Fred. Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to sort of recapping, as I say, tomorrow, doing that Monday morning quarterbacking, and also to hearing you on the radio tomorrow to get your take on what's happened. Fred's on the radio live from the state capitol every weekday morning, 10 to 11 on Talk 1300 AM.